Section 1. The Boxing Match. Soon after the Second World War, former RAF pilot E.R. Braithwaite struggled to find a job in London due to racism and became a teacher in an East End school where the students were hardened and undisciplined. But with unfailing respect and courtesy, Braithwaite slowly wins them and his colleagues over. On Thursday morning, the class seemed to be in the grip of some excitement and expectancy. During the recess, they stood about the classroom in little whispering groups, which fell silent as I approached. But I could read no special significance into this. The lessons proceeded more or less normally, but heavily. In the afternoon, we went down to the gym for the usual PT period. The equipment was neatly arranged around the cleared dining nail. Vaulting, horse buck, jumping standards, medicine balls, boards, several pairs of boxing gloves slung by their laces across the vaulting horse. The boys were, with one exception, barefoot and wearing only blue shorts. Sapiana sat on a low form, his right arm bandaged from elbow to wrist. "Line up in the center, will you?" I began. They eagerly obeyed, forming two neatly graded lines. But then Denham stepped forward. "Please, sir." "Yes, Denham." "Can't we have boxing first today, please, sir?" "Why, Denham?" "Oh, nothing, sir. Just feel we'd like to have a bit of a change, sir." "Oh, very well," I replied. "Get yourselves into pairs according to size." The pairing was completed in a moment, as if by pre-arrangement. Only Denham remained unpaired. "My partner's crippled, sir." He indicated the banded Sapiana. "Will you have a go with me?" At this, the others, as if on cue, moved quietly towards us, watchful, listening. "You can wait and have a bout with Potter or one of the others." The pieces were falling into place. The penny had finally and fatefully dropped. "They'll be done in, sir. I don't mind having a knock with you." "Go on, sir, take him on." This chorus of encouragement was definitely not in my best interest. "No, Denham, I think you'll have to skip it for today." Denham looked at me pityingly, slipped the gloves off his large hands, and casually dropped them at my feet. He had made his point. Looking quickly at the others, I could read the disappointment and disgust in their faces. They thought I was afraid, scared of the hulking, loutish fellow. "Okay, let's go." I took a pair of gloves from the horse. Potter stepped over and expertly secured the laces for me, while Sapiana, strangely unhampered by his mysterious injury, did the same for Denham. The others, meanwhile, ranged themselves along the wall, silent and expectant. As he began to box, it became clear that Denham's reputation as a boxer was thoroughly justified. He was fast and scored easily, though his blows were not delivered with his full weight. I tried to dodge and parry as best as I could, being only concerned with riding this out for a while, until I could reasonably stop it. I had stupidly allowed myself to be lured into this one, and it was up to me to extricate myself with as little damage to either dignity or person as I could. "Come on, sir, go after him." I recognized Patrick Fenman's voice. Disappointment was poignant in it. They must all be somewhat surprised at my lame efforts. Suddenly, Denham moved in and hit me in the face. The blow stung me, and I could feel my eyes filling up with tears. The salt blood in my mouth signaled other damage. I was angry now. This was no longer a pleasant little affair. The fellow meant business. It may have been the sight of blood on my face or the insistent urging of his cronies to "go after him." Whatever it was, it spelled Dunham's undoing. Guard open, he rushed in, and I hit him. My gloved fist sank deep into his solar plexus, and the air sighed out of him as he doubled up and collapsed on the floor. There was a moment of stunned silence. Then Potter and some others rushed to help him. "Hold it! Leave him where he is. I'll line up quickly for vaulting. Clark, collect the gloves and stack them by the door." To my amazement, they obeyed without demur, while I hurried to Denham and helped him over to a low form against the wall. He was only winded and would soon be as right as rain. When he was comfortable, I continued with the PT lesson, which went without a hitch. The boys were eager to do their best and went through the various movements without recourse to my prompting or direction. They now looked at me as if I had suddenly and satisfactorily grown up before their very eyes. At the end of the lesson, I dismissed the class and went over to Dennis. He still looked a bit green. That was just a lucky punch, old. No harm meant. Why don't you pop up to the washroom and soak your head in some cold water? You'll feel a lot better. Yes, sir. His voice was shaky, but there was no hesitation or mimicry about the sir. I helped him to his feet, and he signaled to Porter, who went off with him towards the washroom. The incident marked a turning point in my relationship with the class. Gradually, Denham's attitude changed, and like it, that of his cronies. He could still be depended on to make a wisecracker comment whenever the opening presented itself. But now, these were more acceptable to all of us, for they were no longer made in a spirit of rebellion and viciousness. He appeared clean and more helpful and courteous. And with this important area of resistance dispelled, the class began to move into high gear. Moreover, I suddenly became aware of an important change in my own relationship to them. I was experiencing more than a mere satisfaction in receiving their attention, obedience, and respect, with their acceptance of my position as their teacher. I found myself liking them, really liking them, collectively. At first, I'd approached each school day a little worried, a little frightened, but mostly determined to make good for the job's sake. Now there had occurred in me a new attitude, a concern to teach them for their own sakes, and a deep pleasure at every sign that I had succeeded. It was a delight to be with them, and more I had occasion to wonder at their general adult viewpoint. I was learning a little more of them each day. Some of them would remain in the classroom during recess, and we'd talk about many things. They were mostly from large families and understood the need and importance of money. They even felt that they should already be at work to help ease the financial strain on their parents and to meet their own increasing demands for clothing, cosmetics, entertainment, etc. They spoke of overcrowding, marriage, and children with casual familiarity. One girl had helped with the unexpected birth of her baby brother and spoke of it with matronly concern. The lessons were taking hold. I tried to relate everything academic to familiar things in their daily lives. Weights were related to foodstuffs and fuel, measurements to dress lengths, linoleum and carpets. In this way, they could see the point of it all and were more prepared to pursue the more abstract concepts. In geography and history, we talked and read, and here I was in the very fortunate position of being able to illustrate from personal experiences. They eagerly participated, asking me questions with a keenness I had not suspected in them, and often the bell for recess, lunch, or the end of the day would find us in the heat of some discussion, disinclined to leave off. The headmaster would occasionally drop in unexpectedly and would sometimes find himself drawn into discussions on some point or other. He was pleased and expressed his satisfaction with my efforts. On one such occasion, I mentioned the idea of the visit to the Victoria and Albert Museum. I wouldn't advise it, he replied. You have settled in very nicely with them here, but taking them across London would be another matter entirely. I think they'll be okay, sir. There's always a tendency for the best of children to show off when out of the close supervision of the school confines. And these are no exception. They are probably worse than most. After all, you cannot hope to supervise 46 children by yourself. I'd like to try, sir. Out of the question, Braithwaite. But I'll say this. If you can persuade another teacher to go with you, you may. It's entirely against the council's rules for one teacher to have charge of so many children outside the school. I'll see if I can get someone to go with me. Fine, if she's agreeable, let me know, and I'll arrange for a travel warrant. He was smiling slyly, and I wondered who it was he had in mind. But what about that teacher's own class, sir? Don't worry. I'll supervise it for the occasion.
At lunch, I mentioned the plan to Miss Blanchard.
Would you like to help me with them, Miss Blanchard? Gillian.
Ricky? She smiled. Well, will you? I would love to. When do you plan to go?
as soon as the head can arrange for the travel warrant.
This was fine. Why didn't you ask Miss Clintridge?
Just didn't think of it, I suppose. There was playful mockery in those eyes.
When the rest of the staff returned from the dining hall, I mentioned the idea of the trip and that Miss Blanchard had agreed to accompany me. They were, to say the least, very dubious about it. While I sat there listening to them, there was a knock on the door. Weston opened it to Patrick Fanman, who asked,
Please, sir, Miss Dare would like to know if anyone has fixed the girls' netball. Miss who? Weston's voice was shrill with astonishment. Miss Dare, sir. Fernman looked at the puzzled face and supplied, Pamela Dare, sir. Without replying, Weston walked away from the door to lean against the fireplace, his face a study in exaggerated amazement. I meanwhile took a netball from the sports cupboard and gave it to Fernman, who quickly disappeared, noisily slamming the door in his haste. Well, I'll be damned, Weston said. Weston was smiling, but there was a sneer near the surface of his smile. Fancy that? Miss Dare would like the netball. He pointed his pipe at me with a theatrical gesture. I say, whatever's going on in that classroom of yours, old man? I mean, this suburban formality and all. Bit foreign in this neck of the woods, don't you think? Is it really? I inquired. It had not occurred to me that I would need to defend any improvement in the children's conduct or deportment, and I was not quite sure what Weston was getting at. What's it all in aid of, old man? He continued. His hairy arm stuck out from the seedy, leather-trimmed sleeves like that of a scarecrow. The wurzel gummidge of the staff room. Some sort of experiment in culture for the millions? Not quite that, I replied. Just an exercise in elementary courtesy. Does it bother you? I was becoming a bit irritated by the smile and the unnatural patronizing good humor. Bother me? Not at all, old man. But tell me, do you also address them as Miss? Or are you exempt because of your, privileged position? The rest of the staff were watching us and I felt very uncomfortable. I too addressed the girls as Miss. Thoroughly democratic and commendable, he replied, the forced smile becoming even sweeter. But tell me, are the rest of us uncouth critters expected to follow suit? Not necessarily. It's merely that my class and I have reached an agreement on certain courtesies. Thank God for that. I don't somehow see myself addressing those snotty little girls as Miss along with Denham and Company. Is it that you object to being taught a lesson in courtesy by those boys, Mr. Weston? I could hardly believe my ears. That was Miss Dawes. I would never have thought of her as coming to anybody's defense unless it was Miss Phillips.
I do not need lessons in manners from those morons.
Miss Dawes continued bravely.
As long as you learn, it doesn't matter who teaches, does it?
Good for you, Josie, Clinty interjected. Ah, well, Weston resumed. I suppose it comes natural to some people to say, yes, ma'am, yes, boss. This caricature of a subservient Negro was so grotesque that I could almost smile, but the intention behind the words was not funny, and I was rather relieved when Grace, with her usual tact, broke into the conversation. I felt slightly disturbed by the tensions generated within the staff room. I had thought that my presence was a red rag to Weston's bull, but now I discovered that his attitude to me was only part of a general situation which had existed for some time before my arrival. Most of the women teachers were obviously fed up at being saddled with a male colleague who never joined in any conversation except to be sarcastic or critical. Gillian, I noticed, remained cool and untroubled by it. She seemed to be able to play the part of observer, letting any discord pass over her, confident in the assurance of her own poise and breeding to keep her inviolate. Miss Phillips seemed unaffected by it for different reasons. She spent her staff room leisure in some strange world of fancy which was irrevocably closed to all except Miss Dawes, who also, until today's brave gesture, had never allowed anything which transpired to invade their tight, secret conclave. But the clash of personalities in the staff room was, after all, of no great importance, so long as its repercussions did not enter the classrooms.
It was the children, not the teachers.
An extract from To Sir with Love by E.R. Braithwaite. E.R. Braithwaite, 1912 to 2016, born in Guyana, was a former diplomat, Royal Air Force pilot, teacher and writer. This extract is taken from his memoir, To Sir with Love, which is based on his teaching career in London.